I have found over the last few years that I have changed philosophy in a lot of different things as I get older in life. One of the mottos I kind of subscribe to these days is buy once, cry once. And the reason why I got that way is I realized I kept trying to find cheaper things, less expensive things, in hopes that it would suit my needs, only to find out later that I either had to buy it again to replace it, or it kind of didn't live up to my expectations and I wanted something a little nicer. And I've kind of gone that way with several things over the last few years. For the first time in a long time, I bought a brand new truck versus a truck that somebody had been driving for a while on a lease and traded in, and I was getting a better deal on it. Coolers. I found myself stopped buying cheap Walmart coolers and invested in a Yeti because it kept everything cold for a whole lot longer. I found myself investing more in a Dakota lithium battery versus some Amazon special because I was worried about some generic battery shorting out the trolling motor or my electronics on my Autopilot 120. Again, something else that I've spent a little more upgrading from a paddle kayak to a pedal kayak, and now to the Old Town Autopilot 120 that's got Spot-Lock Minn Kota on it, as well as, a good size head unit with forward-facing side imaging and down imaging, sonar. You find yourself, as you get a little bit older, investing a little more so that you just really, you don't have to worry about things. And one of those things that I'm investing more and more these days, is higher end quality rods. Reels I've always looked at that I would put a little more into, but when it comes down to it, rods is a whole different ballgame, and a lot of people tend to spend more money on reels than they do rods. I don't know if it's like a bragging rights thing or whatever. I'm kind of there's a certain price point where for reels, you only get so much of a return of investment for. If you followed the channel for any amount of time, you know that the Wazillion SVTW is one of my favorite reels, but I only have one of them. I've found a better value in like the Shimano Corrado MGL 150 and some of the others at a little less price point, because I just don't see the cost to performance benefit in some of the higher end reels like the Metanium, the Bantam. I know there's people out there with a boatload of G Loomis NRX pluses and Bantams and all that. That's good for them. They've realized the same thing. They are spending their money where they want to. For me, that's it's a cost to benefit kind of thing. But rods seem to be a little bit different story, and you can find good quality rods at varying price points. So what I'm going to be doing this year is, over the last few years, I've played with a lot of rods under the $250 price point and done a lot of reviews on them, caught a lot of fish on them and all that too. But towards the end of the season last year, I started playing around with a little higher end rods. Now, Graham at American Legacy Fishing knows I've been playing around with these higher end rods, and decided that he needed to throw something else into my hands to have a fair mix of the stuff that I've been playing with. NRX Plus, the Shimano Poison Adrena, the Dobyns Champion Extreme models, and he sent me out 2 of the new MEGABASS P5 Destroyer USA models. Doing a little bit of research, these are new releases of models that have been around for a while. They did the relaunch of this line late last year, where I guess they upgraded and changed like the cork on the handles and did some minor upgrades to them, and then kind of re-released these out. And then there's a new next batch, if you will, that were just released from MEGABASS recently. The FMJ, which stands for Full Metal Jacket. You have the BMG, and I know from my video gaming days that BMG stands for Big Motherfucking Gun, so it's a big dog. And then they also have like another, I think it's a 110 special, so it's a jerkbait. It's a redo of a jerkbait rod that they made a little bit longer. And so this FMJ model is also a re-release, and I guess the previous model of this was 7 foot instead of 7'3". But this one's 7 foot 3 inches long, and it's rated for baits that are from 3/8 to a full ounce. The line recommendation is 10 to 25 pound fluorocarbon, monofilament, and then braid. You can kind of adjust from there. But this thing is absolutely gorgeous. I was able to get out and spend a little time on the water with it, fishing from the bank as soon as I got these. And I got these a couple of weeks ago. We had a nice warm day, but I was able to make several casts with it. I was throwing a 3/8 ounce tungsten Beast Coast fishing jig with a Yamamoto flapping hog trailer on it, and this thing felt phenomenal. Now, the weather conditions weren't conducive for really catching fish. Like I said, I was just throwing a creek because I really wanted to go make some casts. I really wasn't expecting to catch a fish, because at that time, these fish are still in deep holes hiding out, waiting for it to warm up. Which for us, hey, spring is coming. Probably another 4 weeks and I'll be out in the kayak again, going to town. But I was able to make several casts with this and really, really enjoyed it. I could feel everything with that tungsten jig coming through my hands on this rod. And this thing is super light. And I mean super light. It's almost NRX Plus light. Not quite. NRX Plus has, higher end guides, which is, why it costs so much more. But these are Fuji guides with the SIC inserts in them. Very high quality, very nice. For the price point, just under the NRX, this thing is phenomenal. See how it's got its custom insert there in the end cap? But it's got some nice high quality cork in it. I haven't even taken the plastic off of this yet. But you see this one's split grip. It's not a full cork. Some I like and some I don't. I really don't get real picky when it comes to all that. But the one thing that stood out to me when it comes to this MEGABASS rod is the detail. It's got gold accents and details, and then it's got different color threads. It's pretty amazing when you look at it up close. Coming up, one thing I find that I really like is the really small trigger on these rods. And then looking at the bottom right here, I like to ride my pinky behind the trigger and then use my ring and my index finger on the blank. But I love how this rod is designed, that the blank is exposed right there, so you get max feeling while you're palming this rod. Now, I think this is a MEGABASS specific rod seat, which I really like. And again, the detail of the work around the nut is actually phenomenal. And I like that it's nice and smooth. I like riding my finger, right under my reel when it's on the rod so I can touch the line. Then the labels are stamped on here. Very nice graphics. I mean, they take pride in what it looks like on the rod itself, so that's really kind of cool. Now, in the rod blank, it's sanded here where they have the decals, but above this it's unsanded, so it's kind of a rough texture. But hey, it makes it kind of nice, and it's a really unique design. Now, looking at the details from the MEGABASS website, they talk about the 5D system, and it's basically 5 performance-optimized panels that make up the rod blank. 1 is for high tension in the longitudinal direction. 2 and 3 are 45-degree torsional rigidity on the right and left side. Then a 4th for lateral stiffness, and 5th again for longitudinal elasticity. The 5 panels are then arranged to maximize and integrate the distinct performance characteristics of each panel into one cohesive whole, allowing the 5D blanks to store and release their greater potential in the casting motion. Now, normally I try to go find where the rod makers, especially when they're talking about their blanks, have done like some graphics or video or something that I can kind of steal and use to show how they lay their technology out, so I can get a more geeky look. MEGABASS doesn't really do that. I searched their website up and down in a whole bunch of different videos in Japanese and English, and they don't really kind of give up the juice on that. So you kind of have to take their word at what they're, the best way that they're describing how they lay out 5 different panels to roll their blanks. It's a little bit different in each of these higher end rod companies. It's just the way they do things, but I also understand it's the way they protect the way they do things. Now, just reading here real quick, the FMJ is built for bottom contact domination, delivers refined sensitivity, intuitive loading characteristics, and a silky smooth power delivery. Designed with the perfect upper blank tension to navigate gnarly terrain and the ability to transmit contact and composition with surprising clarity, the FMJ brings jigs to life with devastating effectiveness. Now, I completely understand what they're saying there, because with a rod this sensitive, especially when you're using, say, 3/8 ounce tungsten jig, but in my case, I'm looking to use this as my perfect Texas rig rod. Throwing those 7 to 10 inch worms with 3/8 ounce bullet weights, creature baits like the baby D-bomb or my beloved bandito bug. Those creature baits, those worms that I really want to get down there and have maximum sensitivity using those tungsten weights, tungsten jigs, tungsten bullet weights. I want to be able to feel everything. What line am I going to be using to throw those baits? It's going to be fluorocarbon, Sunline, FC Sniper, 16 pounds. What reel am I going to use on this? Well, you're just going to have to wait and see for that review. Now, one of the other things I thought was really impressive from MEGABASS is it comes with its own custom rod sleeve. That's actually pretty slick. It's very well equipped. Plus, they actually stamp it with what the technique is. In this case, this is the 7'5" BMG. It's a heavy instead of medium heavy, and it's 7'5" long, and this rod is rated for 1/2 ounce to those 1 1/4 ounce 12 to 25 pound fluorocarbon. Now I've got two applications that I'm going to be using this BMG rod for. This is going to be for my little heavier jig and say deeper jig applications, throwing those 5/8 ounce War Eagle Jig Jitsu jigs that I got on sale at Monster Bass, and I'm going to be pairing those up with those Gary Yamamoto flapping hogs, things like that. Little bit deeper jig fishing, but I'm also going to be using it for pitching around laydowns and things like that when I'm not using a smaller finesse jig. Another application I've heard this BMG is really good for is throwing around these 6-inch mag drafts. It's a bait I've not really thrown around a bunch. I got it towards the end of last year, didn't get to throw it very much. This year I said something else that I'm really going to learn. But again, this is just a first look. I can't wait to get out and put these rods to work here as we get into springtime, because man, I am ready to get out on the water and catch my first fish of 2023. Tell me about your experience with MEGABASS, rods, baits, things like that. Drop me a comment down below. I'm curious to see how many other people are using these rods. I really am impressed with what I've seen so far. At the end of the year, I'm going to do a little roundup video, and I'm going to put these rods head to head. NRX Plus, Poison Adrena, Dobbins Champion Extreme, and these MEGABASS rods, and I want to see which ones I actually think are worth their money. I'm going to look at warranties, price, the components used in the rod. Is there some wiggle room where maybe you're spending a little more money on one thing just because you want to have the name of that rod? Is it really worth the value? I want to see which one of these rods are what I consider the best bang for the buck at these upper end price ranges. And y'all know, I don't care who wins. I just want to give an honest opinion about all these different rods, since I have a great partnership with American Legacy Fishing that allows me to play with this gear. And then at the end of the day, I'll buy the rods and fish with the ones that I want to keep. Now, if you haven't seen the video I did on the medium heavy and heavy G Loomis NRX Plus rods, I'll leave a link to that video right here. And if you haven't seen the video I did on the Shimano Poison Adrena medium heavy and the X Pride B heavy rods, I'll leave a link to that one right here. Until next time, get outside when you can and make some memories. One cast at a time.